him or whatever he's up to. Oh, all right. Let's get started. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 874, Dragon Age Origins and the Trouble with World Building. I don't think Dragon Age Origins has any problems with world building. It was one of Bioware's biggest and longest titles in terms of content and dialogue and text on screen. So I don't think anyone ever complained. I think they were very happy, in fact, that there was so much to explore and see and people to talk to and switch around and customize and all that. All the good RPG stuff that you expect from a, I guess, not a sequel, but a spiritual sequel to Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights. So maybe he's speaking from a fantasy perspective, because when you think of Dragon Age, or at least Dragon Age Origins, they sort of throw everything at you. And I think we talked about this before, how we were listing all the fantasy tropes and all the fantasy elements. And there's a thing, like it's easier to list the things it doesn't have, like vampires. You know, it's just like, they don't have any vampires. Wow. And all this blood. There's all kinds of blood magic going around, blood rituals, and there's no vampires. I'm like, that takes control for...
God, vampires would be basically the ultimate in anti-magic.
I don't know. It could do a lot of cool shit, but for a writer not to do, or a series of writers not to do vampires in a dark fantasy is impressive.
Oh yeah, think about it. The most powerful magic in Dragon Age is blood magic. So vampires, them, consuming blood, they'd be the most powerful anti-magic because they'd be able to deal with the most powerful magic.
That would be
just
cool.
Because they need to survive.
Yeah, they had liches. They had like phylacteries and all these things, and wraiths and ghosts, and like they had almost everything you can imagine for fantasy magical stuff.
Weren't the phylacteries the Templars performing blood magic on the mages so that they could track rogue mages?
It was a sample of the mage's blood.
Yes, well, didn't they have to perform blood magic in order to be able to use those phylacteries?
Think so. It's never really mentioned how they use it. It's just like that with the phylacteries, they could track down mages. We never really see it in working.
Yeah, and the whole system of magic was, and how they're allowed to coexist with the Templars and the normal people, and all that was all well set apart. Everything made sense, and you had
the reason for the whole circle in the first place is because when Andraste freed all the world from Tevinter was mages, so everyone hated mages, but we had to deal with the newer mages. So the entire philosophy of the Chantry, the Circle, and the Templars comes from a group of barbarians who hated mages. So that's why everything was so bad for mages for centuries. But they put the groundwork in the history of this is the reason why they think this way. To them, their peoples were slaves to mages for millennia.
Yeah, and
so now that they're in charge, mages are now treated as second-class citizens.
And the elves and the Qunari also treated mages in a very distinct way, and it's all connected because anyone can become a mage from birth, and they're all connected through the Fade, and that's where the gods came from. All these, everything's neatly sort of set up to be a certain way, and how the demon realm works, and all this stuff is like, oh, this is what you do in chapter 1 or series 1 of a fantasy series, and it's like, yeah, this is going to be a great platform for a whole bunch more stories, and it just sort of went all the way through, unfortunately.
Well, the obviously the way that they made Dragon Age 2 wasn't great, but I did like the idea that it was just a story within the world. So it helped build more layers onto the world building. So it wasn't like, it was another end of the world thing. It was just, this is just somebody living within the world of Thedas, and you got more lore, you got more insight into the world to see how things actually worked.
Dragon Age 2 felt like if marketing took control and said, okay, who did most of the players play as in Origins? And it was noble male or noble female human.
Yeah, Kuzland.
Yeah, so we'll take that, we'll take that as a base. We'll make a story around that, right? It can't be too big. It has to be contained, so we'll make a city, and the city has its own limits. Like, all right, what else? Okay, they were heterosexual. All right, so wait, no, we can't limit it. It's too complicated. We can't just heterosexual. Everyone has to be bisexual. All right, everyone's like all these like marketing ideas for what's going to be the most popular, what's the fastest to get accomplished, and it just made sense that it was made the way it was. And of course, the plot was rushed, and all that was the only thing that was worthwhile was the dialogue, unfortunately. So,
well, it did give you a. I just had to kick my cat out because it just bit me. It did build upon how the Chantry worked. It gave you an insight on how the Templars worked and how actually living in Thedas would be compared to just being on a quick adventure. So you get the insights into how the elves, actually work. You're not going there to like get their help. You're just interacting with them, and how day-to-day politics really just goes. And I did enjoy that part of Dragon Age 2 because you don't need an end of the world plot for every single game.
No.
And it's shown with the other three, with Inquisition and Veilguard, that it starts you get a bit ridiculous when it's always end of the world, especially in such a short time frame.
Well, that was already made ridiculous with Inquisition, and the people who liked Inquisition you could appreciate for what it tried to do and the scope of things, but the plot again just blown up. Just what are we doing? What exactly is the scope of the threat? Why does the bad guy want to go to the Fade, and why hasn't he done like all these dumb things? That opening a rift in the Fade seems pretty obvious, pretty easy, pretty commonplace these days. I don't see why Corpheus couldn't just popped into the Fade and did whatever he wanted. But apparently no, he needs this orb. He's got to use his orb to get there, and eventually he gets it at the end, which is hilarious. So it's like, okay, what's the point of this story? Anyway, we're not going to rant about the Dragon Age series because that's old news. Let's get on with the video. 27 minutes. I don't think we're going to get through it all. I'm going to speed it up if it gets too boring. Let's find out what this guy is all about.
Oh yeah, he has a fucking soft video essays place.
Whoa.
Hello everyone. I've written and spoken a few times about the Dragon Age games, but only briefly and tangentially, which is strange, because I've committed far more ink thus far to the Elder Scrolls or Dark Souls or Halo or Wolfenstein or Bioshock games, and of all of those, only 2 were the game series I was introduced to before Dragon Age. In fact, before playing Dragon Age 2, the only fantasy RPGs I had ever played were Fable 3 and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion and the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. Humorously, this means there was a time when Dragon Age 2 was in my top 5 favorite role-playing games, although admittedly only through lack of competition.
Right.
These days, I'd say I favor Inquisition, but have a more positive view of the second game than most people. Perhaps one of these days I'll have the opportunity to write about both of those games in the depth that they deserve. But this essay is not about those games. It is instead about the Dragon Age game that I like the least, and which many players like the most, that being Dragon Age Origins.
Interesting.
But it is also not about why I like the game less. As a brief explanation, though, it's just a little too rough around the edges. The other games have their distinct faults, but in the case of Dragon Age Origins...
If Origins is rough around the edges, what the hell is Dragon Age 2?
It's perfection.
Dragon Age 2 is my favorite game without competition. Then Origins is kind of shoddy. I was like, what?
It's definitely his view on Origins definitely come from someone who's playing it from 2020 onwards.
Maybe.
And not understanding this is a 2009 game.
Yeah, but Dragon Age 2 came out like 2 years later, so it's not like that far removed.
It's also from the point of view of someone who thinks Skyrim is one of the greatest RPGs ever, despite the fact that it's just a first-person shooter with swords.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
So this guy doesn't really want an RPG so much as he wants an action game with RPG
Not sure.
elements.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. If he doesn't like Origins, which is a slow game, that might be true because it's not for everyone as a result of the gameplay. But if you like fantasy, if you like dark fantasy, if you like storytelling and choices and all that RPG stuff that you expect from BioWare, like this is the first example. This is the game you want to get. Anyway.
The combat, while allowing for a great deal of freedom and creativity, has a slight but noticeable lack in the impactful punchiness of its combat, washes of blood notwithstanding. This innovation on the formula would come later, but Origins was focused on larger things. The game innovates a massive world of wonder and discovery and allows the player to explore that world in the way that they might have then recalled from earlier titles like Neverwinter Nights. This would set the Dragon Age games up to be an evolution away from the older RPGs that had defined the fantasy role-playing genre, that kind of third-person, usually isometric, usually Dungeons & Dragons-based RPG style.
So interplay stuff, yeah, okay.
And you can see this in their shot-reverse-shot dialogue and animated in-game battle sequences. To players who had walked away from films like Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's books...
Oh my God, just say that... What? Just say the movie. the adaptation by Mr. Blah 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 from J.R. Dude, we know it's the most popular movie in the world.
Yep.
More grand battles like this.
His talk about the shot reverse shot. That's just Bioware. Bioware does that even now in the new games.
I think any dialogue does that. Even KOTOR did that. You know, dialogue cut.
Yeah.
Dialogue 2 cut.
RPG, Dragon Age Origins was the perfect game. Perfect is always a misrepresentation. Most people don't think...
Then don't use that word. Why? Hawk, you're an idiot. No, you're not really an idiot. You're kind of smart. Well, you're not really smart. You're kind of cute. No, you're not really... It's like, what the hell are you trying to say?
Well, I was not called cute, so I'm all right.
Yeah, just use the right word the first time. Well, it's not really perfect. It's like, don't use an absolutist word. To
be honest with you, out of all the games, it is the perfect one. When you think about it, it has the best story, best characters,
has everything,
best RPG, best, it has the best combat because it's actually tactical and interesting.
And it's forgiving.
It makes you think, not just tapping A.
Yeah, if you make a mistake in the first game, you have lots of time to heal, to reassess, change your tactic, etc.
Best is the wrong word to put in front of RPG when the word only fits better.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say perfect. I wouldn't say best. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't use these big words.
Well-rounded.
It's so they have so much. They had like 7 years to put it together. They put so much stuff into it and so much attention to detail that it's their most detailed. It's one of the most detailed games outside of The Witcher 3 for fantasy RPGs. So I mean, you can compare it to Skyrim, I guess, but that's more of a mod extravaganza. Everyone's just throwing stuff at it and customizing it any way they want. But look at games like Greedfall by Spider. Baldur's Gate 3 is another comparison because they put so much into it. So, yeah, let's go back to the isometric games like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter. Yeah, no, it's the next evolution. I think they made a good step saying we want to make games like Baldur's Gate, and this is the next step, and they did it. So, in the same vein, but they threw a lot of just voice acting, like so many actors and so much dialogue, so many scenes, so many quests, and you get lost in the world. I think it's one of those 60-hour games that you have to play properly. So
if I remember correctly, didn't every single company that worked on a Wizards of the Coast property based on a D&D setting, say after they finished working on it that they never wanted to work with Wizards of the Coast ever again. So with Bioware, they made Dragon Age. That was their version of D&D. And Larian, who made Baldur's Gate 3, they're trying to do their own thing now too, because they really fucking hate Wizards of the Coast.
They were surprised they even got the license to do Baldur's Gate 3. And they were perfectly fine doing their own IP anyway, or their own content. And, you know, they're their own worst enemy. What they've done with Baldur's Gate, everyone loves it, but it's such a niche thing that not everyone's going to appreciate it. So, and there's so much variation. There's people who never liked RPGs to begin with, or fantasy RPGs. I still won't play it. I'll get around to it eventually. I don't know when, but I'll eventually check it out. It just doesn't interest me. I mean, it's one of those games that it's going to take like 3 months to go through, and I don't want to have that investment. So,
to be fair though, D&D's more. So I was going to be fair though, D&D's more popular now than it's ever been.
Maybe, I don't know. With games like New Vegas, like there's something special about it. It's kind of, it also has that customizable factor to it as well.
Yeah.
And it's not too, like BG3 is just huge. It's this massive download. New Vegas was done on a budget. It was done cleanly. It wasn't done it wasn't optimized. So I was playing New Vegas 2 weeks ago, and I stopped around halfway through. I was like, okay, it hit the need. I was like, I want to play some Vegas. Done, and I'll finish it off later this year because I play once a year, one whole playthrough. So there's something about classic games that you always go back to. Origins is like that, but it's like I gotta devote a month at least just to like nothing.
Every year I'll restart it. Just
I'm still.
The thing is, 9 times out of 10, I'll just do the exact same thing I did before.
I'm still doing my nightmare run, but problem is, I don't want the main character to ever fall in a fight. I don't want any of my party members to fall in a fight, and I'm in Redcliffe now, and I don't want any named characters to die. So yeah. So for the moment, I'm a bit stuck.
All right, we got some super chats. I don't know what's going on, but let me read what we got from Legacy. Just to slip into a reminder, this guy deletes any comments he disagrees with, which means he can't handle his echo chamber having holes. This guy? This guy sounds like he rambles on all day about whatever he feels like, and he won't allow other people to talk? And the Andridol just gave me 10 Nokia points, whatever those are. Thanks. Nice.
Yeah.
I always wanted an old Nokia back in the day. Never got one. Anyway.
Oh, Nokia.
Okay.
Yeah. We pronounce it Nokia.
Nokia? What?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
We don't care about those. What country is it from? It's it's Nordic.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
That Nordic country, Australia.
The Nordic country of Australia. All right, fair enough. Let's go.
Those who do likely understand that this is a perfectly fine opinion to hold, even if others don't like Origins the way they do. Many more...
It's a perfect game and perfectly fine. Don't stop using the word, sir.
Probably respect the quality and execution behind a lot of what Origins does well, as much as they respect the quality of the things it doesn't do well, or which it simply does less of. For example, I don't love getting grappled endlessly by an ogre during combat.
Okay, you suck. We get it.
Or as I encountered today, by the way, going off script a little bit here, getting webbed up and then repeatedly grappled in between getting webbed up by a group of spiders.
Okay, what level do you have an ogre when you're fighting spiders at the same time? I don't remember.
No, here's the thing. If you're getting grappled by an ogre, there's talents you can use with your other characters to get you out of that grapple. Like you have to switch your characters.
Shield bash, or was it pummel hit? I can't remember which one.
Yeah, shield bash. Mages, was it Stone's Fist? And rogue is something else. But yeah, you can do different things. Also, when you're getting webbed up, just swap to another character to batter the spider that's webbing you. It's a it's called gameplay.
Yeah.
You're meant to use your tactics to get around stuff.
Well, you don't win a fight in Dragon Age Origins starting with a fight. You win it in the menus before you even begin the fight. You need to plan that far ahead, unlike in the later games where you can just dodge attack.
Mm-hmm. Well, even in Dragon Age 2, you've still got to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by enemies, and you've got to you can still position your party to do that. It's just like you say, in later games you can just dodge out the way of everything. It never makes you want to swap characters, and obviously now in Veilguard that option's gone completely. So, yay!
Absolutely trounced by a group of 4 random spiders. That in a fight that I felt like I was kind of over-leveled for anyway. Just a weird...
So the game is actually really good because you think you're strong, but it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If you over-level for a fight and you lose, chances are either you're not actually over-leveled or it might be a skill issue.
It could be a min-maxing issue, equipment issue, not knowing how your skills work, all kinds of, skills, but essentially it comes down to skill.
A weird
Well,
game.
look at the draw, your healer gets killed first, somehow. So
that was back in the day you actually had healing spells.
That sucks.
Remember healing spells and potions? You could do it as many as you wanted. That was great.
Yep. Down the deep roads, I've got 600 health potions.
And
what you say?
I said, down the deep roads when you have to do the Anvil of the Void mission. I just used to get 600 health potions and be like, that'll do for me.
Is that like having 99 elixirs and 99 high potions in Final Fantasy and never using?
Yeah. Well, because I recently came across an old playthrough when I was 17, 18, and I was stuck on the Broodmother bit in that, and I looked at what my 17-year-old self did, and I thought, I'm so embarrassed here. Why would you go with this squad? What are you doing? This is all got to be changed over.
All right.
Yeah,
I also don't like some of the...
So I did have some trouble in the early game because because fights generally it was a test of whether I could activate my ability to paralyze a group of enemies before they could actually get into range of my party without accidentally hitting any of my party members, paralyzing them. Because then it'd be easy enough to clean up. The early game, it's just rocket tag. Now I'm at mid-level. It's I've basically got Arcane Warrior, so I'm basically the party tank. And
that's it.
Fights are much easier now. Now that I have a tank in the party,
that does everything. The Arcane Warrior heals, it tanks, it melees, it ranges, it does stuns. Yeah, it's fantastic.
The difficulty of different encounters can feel generally. A small group of enemies can wipe your party, and then a theoretically much harder encounter can be a breeze, only for you to face another encounter immediately afterwards that causes you to question whether your entire party is secretly underleveled. This happens to me a lot in the quests, just usually that I do before the Dalish Brazilian Forest quest, and then I end up having an easy time.
Is he having a therapy session with his script? He's like, it's so hard and it's so easy. I don't know. It's hard. Is it the RPG leveling? I don't know. So, why don't you go talk in the mirror before you actually record yourself so we can get on with this? Where's the world building?
Brazilian forests. The encounters in the Brazilian forest aren't actually that hard either.
No,
actually,
the only one I think is difficult. The only difficult one I think is the sloth demon with the fake camp. the fake camp.
That's a softie. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you know that one where
I
you...
found that one easy too. No, the one that I found hard was the one that I always found hard was the hermit, because he's actually pretty strong.
Yeah, well, see, I never get into a fight with the hermit because you can talk to him and trade.
But he's kind of annoying, and I don't want to deal with him. So I'd rather just kill him and
get on with it.
And then come back later when I can deal with the revenants.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
For a while, then I get absolutely tripped up by some random encounter with some basic enemies, and then I kill the dragon really easily, and then Zathrian kicks my butt for some reason. I do, however, love good writing. Online essays.
This is something he's probably not aware of, but okay, that's good that you like something which is outside of your grasp.
Videos and social media posts are rife with poor writing advice and worse writing criticism.
I agree.
I am not the late Ursula Le Guin, nor am I George R.R. Martin. Those writers have had legendary influence on subsequent generations, even as they reflected back on those prior.
I'm surprised he knows Le Guin or Le Guin. Most people don't, but she was a feminist writer, and not everyone. Her stories are not necessarily feminist, but everyone read The Left Hand of Darkness. It's a science fiction one. It's very good. And it's actually relevant today, believe it or not.
To them, and have been titans of the fantasy genre in a critical post-Tolkien period. I've written about...
That's a weird thing to say, but okay, I see what he's saying.
How understanding the craft of writing can make us better critics of bad writing. See my piece on the ending of Game of Thrones.
But you don't need to know anything about anything to know that the last episode of Game of Thrones is shit.
I've seen people suffer horrific head injuries and still realize Game of Thrones ended badly.
Yeah, there's no need to be an expert or critic to realize that's a bad piece of anything.
Dragon Age Origins isn't the kind of video game I will need to draw upon my experience with the craft and its study to diagnose with any kind of deeply problematic misstep. Instead, I'm here to answer a different question. Why haven't we gotten another game like Dragon Age Origins?
Well, there's lots of reasons. We have, actually, with the Witcher series, I would argue. So there's Spider. Again, they made Greedfall. Not this. It's like people call it AA, whatever you want to call the studio. It's obviously not the same level, but it's very similar. You've got I don't really consider this like Pillars of Eternity, but that's more in the vein of the Baldur's Gate Interplay games. Dragon's Dogma, kind of.
Yeah.
And then
within the Dragon Age franchise specifically, it got streamlined.
Yeah, it got streamlined
for accessibility.
No, what happened with the Dragon Age series, like what happened with Mass Effect, Bioware started becoming not actually good at writing stories, and they became really lazy.
Well, yeah, they got rid of the doctors in 2012, and after that, everything just sort of went to shit. So, every game
so they stopped focusing. They stopped focusing on the story so much, and they also they made it more a term I hate to use, but it's the only one that fits. They made everything more video gamey.
I wish.
Well, with Inquisition,
they cut out tons of shit.
there was a mixed bag.
Look at the levels in the original Mass Effect, where it's just furniture put up against, it's furniture tossed around the room to make makeshift defenses, right? And the locations make sense as somewhere people live. Versus Mass Effect 2, where the locations make sense for somewhere you can have a firefight.
Yeah.
It doesn't look lived in.
Yeah, there is that, but the major reason we haven't got another Dragon Age game like Origins or anything like that is because it requires a lot of work to get Origins, and Bioware just like, no, we're not doing that.
Well,
we can't can't remember all these choices that people make. Oh, we're not good, but no, can't do that.
Arguably,
there's the fact that plus there's the fact that if you simplify the game, more people will buy it.
well,
And
the
the actual people who enjoy RPGs are going to buy it anyway because they're stupid and are attracted to the word RPG.
well, there's two elements to what made Inquisition fail. Obviously, not financially, but in terms of what we were expecting from a Dragon Age title, was the world state to be relevant, and they sort of just did whatever they wanted. They had obviously some carryover, but it didn't really matter. And then they just retconned whatever they wanted, like Leliana. So the other stuff is, the story is so bad, but the production value is so high. So it's like, okay, this is stupid. What we're doing is dumb. The villain is dumb. I'm dumb. My advisors we're all pretty stupid. Everyone here is a moron. But we're talking and we're having a good time, like in Dragon Age 2, and that's fine. There's lots of people and there's lots of content. You're invested in so many hooks because it has you in multiple directions, even if the main hook is stupid. So you have all this stuff, like the mini bosses have their own personality, and there's different kinds depending on the choice you made. And there are choices that you think, oh my God, what if I drink the water? But like, it's going to change stuff, and it does, but it doesn't amount to much. It doesn't give you weight to what you've done. So I think that the Child of Morgan was a big one that sort of went nowhere. All these things you expected. The same, even with Mass Effect, with the choice with Arachni, which was in the first game. That's supposed to be a big deal, and it just fizzles out because the scale of that choice was supposed to be a big deal, and Bioware couldn't handle it. So there's like this 3 steps forward, 2 steps back treatment of, oh my God, this is the promise we made to fans. We can't do it. We got to scale it back to make it sell or come out within a certain time frame. So Inquisition, if you're not involved, you just see, wow, this is a beautiful game, beautiful engine, lots of characters, all this talent. They're going to pump it out. But the fans are like, what about all my choices? What about all my characters? What about this villain who's just the dumbest box of rocks that I've ever seen out of all the games? I think Corypheus has probably been the worst villain, even worse than the Mass Effect 2 Reapers. Yeah, he was horrible. He was absolutely the dumbest Dr. Claw villain I've ever heard. So,
well, it hit me how bad. Well, when it came to Inquisition, how actually the choices mean nothing. Was the choice in the nightmare section between either Hawk or whoever was the warden.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter who you pick. The survivor just leaves the story, even though there's still all this stuff going on. Like, say if Hawk survives, he goes, "Oh, I'm leaving." Why? No, because we can't have him in the story anymore. It's like, but he's still really important to the story. Or say if Alistair is the warden, Alistair just leaves. You're like, why?
Yeah. Well, even the story of Dragon Age 2 and everything you did amounted to nothing. Hawk just abandons everything. He abandons his lover, his friends, everything's gone. You're like, this is the hero of Kirkwall. What the champion? Like, what are you doing here? Oh, I thought I'd track down Corypheus and blah blah blah. It's my fault. It's like, okay, where's your entourage? Where's your army? Like,
Corypheus is my problem. Okay, so what we're going to do? Well, I'm just going to leave now. What? I thought you said you wanted to get him because to make it was the fact you released him. No, I'm just gonna wander off. Good luck though. It's like, that's not how it's meant to end.
Yeah, even the wardens in Inquisition were stupid as hell. They sacrificed themselves because some guy from Victor was like, yeah, we got to. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna heal you. It's like Snake Oil salesman. Really, you're gonna trust this dude?
The best thing about it though, it's just like, it's only the Elysian wardens, right? So I'm assuming that the other wardens would tell him, don't do it. No, just not listen to anybody. This just doesn't make any sense. These are. Yeah. But anyway,
it's tragic. The stuff we have to go through to read and listen and pay. Like every scenes of conflict, aside from I always say this, aside from Haven, which was exciting, and there were stakes, and you were watching your base get blown up. You're like, oh my God, I hate this. I got to fight these. Like, that was like, all right, the hooks are real. You guys know there's some drama. You care, and you're in gameplay. You're going. It's not just one scene after another. It's a scene with gameplay that leads to more scenes, and then you get a freaking Kumbaya Disney musical number.
No.
It just everything just goes.
Yeah, when Mrs. Hawk played that bit, she actually looked at me and went, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Don't ask me." She's like, "This is actually really gay." I'm like, "Well."
It's like we fall down this
It
mine
gets
shaft.
better. Was it? No.
Yeah. It was. You fall down this like 4-story mine shaft. You survive somehow. You walk around in the snow like a cripple, and then you wake up and everyone starts singing, and you find a castle. And you're like, what the fuck?
Dawn will come. You're like, yeah, okay. Just
We lost an entire village. I walked about 200 meters, and there's a castle right over. Like, did no one see this? No one? This massive castle that's empty and waiting? No, okay, anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
my thing, especially with Dragon, because I went through it with Mrs. Hawk, I think at the end of last year, and she was getting really excited for Inquisition because
Oh dear.
things. Obviously, she had no idea of it. She went through Origins. She thought it was the greatest thing that's ever existed. She went, "Oh my God, this is fantastic." She loved it. Then she loved all like the Awakening and the Witch Hunt DLC. She went, "Oh, I love it. I'm so excited." Dragon Age 2 came round. Obviously, the change of pace she didn't like because she wanted to see more about the Wardens. But she eventually went like, "Actually, I really like Hawk, and I do actually like the characters, even the ones I don't like. I want to see where this goes because it's all building up. There's threads through from the first game still going. All that Inquisition came. She's like, "What the hell's this? Like, what is this? Who's that? What's this? Why is all these things here? Who are these?" I'm like, "Oh, it's this." She went, "What? I don't know where this place is. What is this?" So, "We've been here before." She went, "Looks nothing like where we've been." And also, she was like, "Oh, it just looks wet. This looks horrible."
Yeah, it felt they said, "Oh, we have a new engine. Let's redo Redcliffe. Let's redo the story of Redcliffe and all the choices you made." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
But yeah, she just carried on. We just rushed through the game. The only bit she enjoyed actually was when her Hawk turned up. Because she was like, "Oh, thank God, it's a character I like." I was like, "Oh, right." She went, "I like Varric, but I don't care about the rest of these people."
Yeah. Yeah,
But
Inquisition.
that's the thing. That's the thing though, with like things built up over 2 games, and then we got Inquisition, and it's just like, what is this? It's just cut, and it feels like a completely different world.
Yeah, it's like they were riding on the coattails with the limousine. They had all this money and time, and they're like, "Yeah, let's just do everything and not think about what we came before," instead of actually thinking about what came before and saying, "Oh, this choice should have this impact and that impact." It's a sad thing to see because everyone who played it, who knows the lore, goes, "This is a giant slog of a waste of what the." And it's always been a great potential, this whole promise of a continuous world. And I remember all the fans of it goes, "Oh, look how much it sold! It's an amazing game!" And it's like, yeah, it was popular for whatever reason. And the people who played it are like, "I don't want to play this again. I don't want to play the Jaws of Hakor or whatever the hell the DLC."
The Descent.
I don't know. I tried. I looked at one of them. I was like, "This does not look like fun. I don't want to."
I did the Descent DLC, and it took me ages to realize that one of the voices was the guy from Metal Gear.
Oh,
Solid Snake's voice, is it?
really, David Hayter?
David Hayter.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's in it, and it's like, "Oh, cool!" And then he gets killed. You're like, "Oh, cool! I'm glad we did all that."
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what was it? We did because me and Mrs. Hawk did the last thing we played of Dragon Age 2 was the Legacy DLC with Corypheus in it,
Right.
and she really enjoyed the DLC. and she thought it was really good. And obviously, when she saw Griffiths in the Inquisition, she went, "Who the hell's that?"
Yeah, they changed the design. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, "Oh, it's Griffiths." She went, "No, Griffiths was cool. I like Griffiths. Who's that guy?" I'm like, no, seriously, it's the same person. She was like,
What?
That's the best way you can see. Like, get someone who's never played Dragon Age, take them through the games, and just see their responses, and you'll know why there's issues with Inquisition.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
It's important to be specific. There have been and will continue to be games like Dragon Age Origins across the games industry.
That you said
from
there
major
weren't.
titles that have come close to scratching that itch, to the indie scene which has the hopeful potential to produce games that we haven't even imagined yet.
Okay.
No, what I'm asking is, why have the other Dragon Age games not done what Origins did? Maybe that will make things clearer.
Obvious.
I've certainly seen some people articulate this question before, but it mostly gets chalked up to Origins coming out of a different time, to Bioware maybe making a different type of game these days,
Yep.
to the idea that writing in AAA games is going downhill generally.
Yep.
I think all those answers are dissatisfactory for different reasons, namely that they don't tend to look at what Origins did well, and why later games...
Everything you said. Different time period from 2002 to 2009. Way different games that came out. The Xbox came out, you know. BioWare was way different then. They had Drew Karpyshyn involved, and believe it or not, Gator was actually good, and so was Mac Walters for Mass Effect 1. So yeah, no, they were struggling artists. They were trying to get their craft together, and they were hungry. And after they got bought out a second time by, I think, EA, then things got bad. Not because EA is bad, but because they got lazy. So
yeah,
like Dragon Age 2 was a miracle.
All of those separatenses given, they're all part of the same one answer.
Yeah.
There's multiple reasons, but we all know the reason. So if to him it's unsatisfactory. It's like, all right, if you know better, let's see what he has to say about this.
In other words, cheap and easy answers haven't diagnosed the writing problems set before any developers of past...
You just said it wasn't a writing problem. What are you talking? Okay, fine. How do you diagnose the writing problems of Dragon Age 2? Let's see.
...or future Age titles. So, let's begin with what makes Dragon Age Origins unique. Other games, especially those that came after, have the cinematic elements, especially voiced in-engine cutscenes or dramatic, large-scale battles. Other games, especially older games, offer depth in the form of text-driven dialogue options or customizable builds with many abilities. Players may like these things, and they're totally right to, at least in my opinion, but these aren't totally unique elements. For the sake of argument, I'll also be avoiding any allusions to nostalgia as well. Many players probably do feel nostalgic for Origins, but I think I've actually identified something in Origins that makes it different from later Dragon Age games in a way that is probably not reproducible, at least until the very end of the series, whenever that may be.
It's done.
Finally, to get to the point, the Dragon Age series has a world-building problem, and it started with Dragon...
What? The Dragon Age series has a world-building problem? How?
Yeah, going to have to elaborate on that.
it's going to be it's too good.
Okay.
It's too good, and they couldn't continue it.
Because the world building of Dragon Age, and of Origins in particular, is so compelling and beautiful to...
Wait. Is it Dragon Age or is Dragon Age Origins? Which one are you talking about?
So he said the world building of Dragon Age and Origins in particular, so the world building of the series, but especially Origins.
Okay, fine.
To the point that I could probably write a massive essay about even just the spiritual, religious, and philosophical elements of these games, as I did with the Dark Souls games.
Philosophical elements? What is he talking about?
He's saying
the metaphysics of Dragon Age? The epistemology of Dragon Age? Like, what is he talking about? The politics? Like, what? The philosophical elements. Dragonfly in sky, hit down with arrow. Tevinter is evil. Like, okay, wait.
That may seem like a strange point. I can already imagine how some people will respond. Dragon Age has great writing. The world building introduced in Origins is fantastic. What are you talking about? Yes, it is. I completely agree. The problem isn't that it's bad. It's beyond good, actually. It's fantastic.
Okay.
The problem is that it's not sustainable.
What? Wait. Okay, wait.
Let's run through
What do you mean sustainable? You describe the setting. It's described. You're done. You can.
He means in order to create supplementary material like a sequel, you need to be a better writer than the writers of the
No, you don't.
of the sequel.
Yep.
No, you don't. In fact, you could be
No,
a worse writer.
Oh, to match the quality, you do.
No, okay. No. If someone writes something amazing, like a setting, for example, and he's, I don't know, Tolkien, whatever, he has all this lore, all kinds of stuff going on. All you do is read that. You read the glossary, you read everything there is, you memorize that. You go, okay, I know the world of the dwarves and the elves and the magic system, and then you just run with it. You don't add to it. You don't take it away. You don't make your own shit up because you're not a good writer or as good. You just use what's given. That's like...
If you're writing a sequel, then you kind of do need to add something.
You just use drama and plot and standard stuff that happens in a story, whatever. You could... It's like someone makes you the garden. They plow the fields, they plant the seeds, and then the first produce comes up. You're like, oh, corn. I could take the seeds and just keep making the same stuff with a different coat of paint and a different climate and different soil, and it's still going to be good. That's what Mass Effect did. Mass Effect 2 is just the same world. It's like we still have the same guns. Oh, we made them better. We cleaned them up. They were shitty in the first game. We made the guns fantastic. The gun plays better. Great. What'd you change? We added some merc groups. We added shields. No, we already had shields. What else? Armor. We already had armor, but now we're making it a gameplay feature. So they're just adding what's already there. They're just gamifying it. Yeah.
This thing. Wait, you're using paint to grow corn?
No, don't think too much about that.
Yeah, it's an analogy. Don't
No, I think his point is, it's too difficult for lazy people to sustain it, and Bioware's lazy.
I would say that's true with when you're talking about Inquisition, and you look at what was Orlais was supposed to be this big magical place, right? And it ended up being this sort of lame ass nothing burger.
Val Royeaux was just like one hallway. Yeah. No, this is what I'll say about in my defense of Dragon Age 2. It was the development time that caused all the issues, because the people who were making it still had passion for the series, and that's why they were able to make something in what was it, 9 to 16 months.
If we look at Veilguard, it's roughly the same time frame. If we look at Mass Effect 2 and 3, the time frames are pretty tight as well. I think when they're given limitations, Bioware goes, "Oh shit, we gotta pump this out," because look at Anthem, look at Andromeda. Those were paused and put on a hiatus, and then they didn't know what the hell Anthem was going to be, and then Casey was like, "I don't like it, I'm leaving," and all these changes. So that does screw stuff up. But they weren't given a deadline. They were just, we'll just putz around. When you're given it like that, then Walters of all people walked in and says, "No, we got to get this thing done." Same with Veilguard, done. We have a year and a half, and they've
at that point it'd been 8 years, hadn't it? And they're like, we're getting no closer to it. It's like, no, we need something.
Yeah. So even with Dragon Age 2, they didn't have a big world. They had to reuse assets. The Z buffer distance was shit. You could tell the.
Yeah, they really did reuse assets.
Yeah, and that's understood based on the time frame and what assets they had. But they still said, no. The core is we need a team of people to talk during every in between scenes. We need those. That's what Dragon Age is. And if you don't have that, there's no reason we're making this game. And it's the same with The Witcher 3. You need to have that single player experience that's full of rich environments. And with Dragon Age, it's full of rich dialogue and the banter and the dynamics between everyone. So
yeah.
I
always put that Dragon Age 2's companions are the only ones who feel like actual people who interact with each other and not just static characters. Because even Origins had that situation of, well, the only reason they're there is because it's the quest. Whereas Dragon Age 2 was, we all live in this city, we've got to put up with each other because we all have a mutual friend in Hawk. So,
yeah. Dragon Age 2 is better than it deserves to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even the dialogue.
You're basically just playing as an NPC from the first game.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah. Hawk's basically just an NPC. Hawk
lives
his life.
Hawk has a real voice. They do some good things with his the scales system of dialogue choices you make. That's permanent features later in the I think the third chapter. So that is the innovation. It is there. People just don't realize it. With stuff like
he has he does have a story, and that's the good.
And he's voiced, and there's all that background. Yeah, exactly.
And he actually has a personality you can grow.
So when I say he's basically an NPC from the first game, I mean he's one of those people from Lothering who basically ran away when after the Warden finished their first mission after Lothering, when the Darkspawn attacked. Well, so he's just some schmuck who lived in Lothering and had to flee.
I like to compare, if you guys have ever seen the compilation videos by, there was some female named YouTuber that would just get all the audio rips from Bioware games or wherever and just put them in this 2-hour long compilation.
Yeah, them talking to each other, yeah.
And they're all talking to each other, and you see and hear the dialogue, let's say in Mass Effect 2, where you could bring Tali on this mission in the third position, or you bring Garrus in the second position, and they all pretty much say the same thing, but in their own way. Whereas with Origins and with a little bit of Dragon Age 2, everyone had their own unique thing to say, depending on who was in the party, because there was 2 other people in the party with them, along with the Warden, but the Warden wouldn't speak. So in the second game, you had 4 people talking, so you had to be very unique with Hawk. So that was that was noticeable comparison to the second games, or Mass Effect 2 rather.
Oh, you mean Tali?
Yeah, in Mass Effect 2, bring
when you said Talia.
No, bring whomever you want.
It just confused me.
On a mission, and then replay the mission with someone else, and they say pretty much the same thing, but in their own way. Whereas in Dragon Age 2, you'll get completely different. It's completely different depending on who you have.
Like it's like if you take say Fenris and Anders to the gallows, they'll have a conversation completely different if you took Isabella and Aveline. And it's like, well, it's just because they're not the same people. It's a completely different conversation. They wouldn't talk about the same things. So yeah, I get what you mean with that. Yeah, with Dragon Age 2, we haven't got time to make it good assets and good stuff like this. We've got to make sure the characters are at least a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and thankfully, as I say this many times about Dragon Age 2, the rivalry system, or the friendship rivalry system, was very good. So they focused on the things that made Dragon Age, at least from a gameplay, which is choices and dialogue and people with you, to excel. And everything else was sort of like secondary or just, bare bones, let's keep it going so the story can continue. So if they just took that formula, like this is what I mean by taking a genius game design or a game design that works and just ported that over to the Inquisition, and then got good writers to make it, or at least decent writers to make a stable plot that keeps your brain in check, doesn't hurt yourself, then that would have worked. It would have been totally fine and just coasted on the entertainment value of having 12, 13, I don't know how many people there were in the Inquisition that had dialogue. That would have been great. But no, they had to do time travel bullshit. They had to have the gay man from Tevinter, his whole backstory. They had to have the warden who wasn't really a warden, and okay. It was just like, this is silly. And Orlais was a big letdown. It should have been a big deal, and they didn't know how to do it. So, and it didn't have to be complicated. Even though there was like all these outcomes of who could be the next leader of Orlais, and you're like, ugh. The way it was done was so poor. The stupid caprice coins annoyed the shit out of me. The Hollis statues just, it's a door. You can go through a window. Like, come on. Like, you need a Hollis statue to open the door. I need 4 Hollis statues to open the door. It's like, shut the, like, what is, and there's a time limit. You're like, wait a second. A time limit? Am I in poisoned smoke where I'm going to die? Like, what's going on? Anyway.
Sure that we're all on the same page. First, for a writer, what does it mean to do world building, to build that actual world?
Descriptions.
Let's say that I want to tell you a story, right? In this story, a group of adventurers come to a strange town. This town is on the outskirts of a dark forest. Its ramshackle rot sustaining a few meager livelihoods.
Yes, description.
Mostly the old and determined who would not or could not make the journey anywhere else out from the forest's shadow. Our adventurers know, or suspect from rumor, that deep in the forest lies who knows what, but further in, or so our characters are told, is a dark fortress, a great abandoned castle, a hollowed wreck that none dare approach. In hushed whispers, the adventurers are warned away, but they forge on through thorn and thistle, through mud and muck, until the trees thin to wide places where the wind howls between, as if they too flee in fear of what may come from the ever-blackening sky. There our few heroes stand within sight of that decrepit wreck, blood frozen and muscles tensed at the yawning maw of its hell.
All right, this does not translate. What he's saying does not translate to video game design or level design or mechanics. He's just being poetic in his description. There's adjectives, there's nouns. Yes, it's a very dark and musty and mysterious and scary world. We get it. It's descriptions.
I'm also struggling to picture what he's supposed to be describing. Is that supposed to be an AI generated image of what he's
Could be.
saying?
Who knows? When did this come out? Let me just check. I totally forgot. Came out 2 weeks ago.
Well, no, it's he did it last year. It's just been for his Patreon. It's only been released on YouTube 2 weeks ago.
Ah, fun.
That's why he'll mention about Dreadwolf coming out soon.
Oh God. Anyway.
Under a starless sky, the night deepens and the wind howls behind. Eyeless, inky windows watch as these unhappy few venture onward.
Eyeless, inky windows. How does a window watch something when there's no eyes? Let's just speed this up.
Into the gate and down, down, down beyond all faded warnings of tongue and stone. Abandon all
the faded warnings of stone.
Hope, ye who enter here. Now, let's stop. A little of what I have just done is world building. Some of it was storytelling, certainly, with a minor amount of characterization, but real world building, actual world building, is more the who, what, where, when, why that forms the structure within which stories occur.
Not necessarily. It's whatever you describe and fill your world with stuff that makes it feel like a world. It could be anything. You were just being overtly poetic on a bunch of normal people walking and trying to get to a place, and the omniscient author describing it to you, which is still someone. This is from a written perspective as opposed to a video game perspective, where you have to can you imagine describing the muck and the guys walking through, and that would be like a challenge to the player. It's like, no, they just have like a sound effect, like clunk, 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 and they go through the muddy forest. That's it. There's no conflict. There's no, maybe they slow it down. You're walking through through the dirt and you can't walk as fast. You hit the shift key so you run faster. It speeds you up a little bit. Clunk, 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 the sound effect. That's it. That's the poetic nature of video gaming.
With a little of the how left for the experience of actually reading or listening to the story itself. Even a lore summary is a kind of storytelling, but it's mostly based around giving you a sense of that structure, the general contours. In a sense, that kind of storytelling is a story about a story almost. Not in a
oh my god.
documentary sense, but as a background. If I open a story with "Once upon a time in the land of Dragon Song," you might have questions about that land beyond just its name. World building's role in writing is actually mostly crack-filling. Whatever things happen in said land of Dragon Song as the events of the story unfold will inevitably contain some nods to that setting.
Sometimes it's crack making, if you want to give that analogy. If you just say, here's a wall, it's not perfect, and here's some details. If I'm describing the wall, it's not always going to be this pure plastered white wall. There's going to be cracks in it. And that's what makes the world interesting, not the fact that you're fixing the holes in your imagination. It's not the same thing. This is such a weird way to describe what he's trying to get at.
And certain ideas in it, or things in it. And from this, you will get a sense of that world. That sense, as well as how you get it, is world building in practice. So, why are so many people obsessed with world building? Well, when you're a writer, especially of fantasy, science fiction, or anything in between, in short, when you are a writer of the fantastical, you often begin with a fantastical idea. Your quest to fill in the gaps created by the idea in your imagination with a whole tapestry of color leads to innovation and inspiration.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the world building fills in the gaps of the idea or the premise of the science fiction universe you want to create, because you're thinking of, how do I get the light speed travel? Well, here's mass effect fields, and what are those? Oh, it's the negative charge placed on this magical element that is not on the periodic table that does this phenomenon and causes this, and you're like, okay, that's the first.
I feel that with world building, it's more making sure that your world works in a consistent manner, and then it's making your reader, viewer, player actually care about what is in it. So you care about this village because you know about the people who are there, you know about this person's here, and you know that the nation you're saving, what the history is, what the culture and everything is. It gives you that connection to it. That's what I think. That's what world building should be. It's making you believe that this is a living, breathing world that you should care about.
And there's many ways to do
verisimilitude is verisimilitude for the purpose of immersion.
It's like look at like Lord of the Rings. Look at that world building that people care about.
Oh yeah, the style though of Tolkien is more like, here's a dictionary. Let me.
Yeah, I
as opposed to.
But still,
here's the
massively successful.
Oh, I'm not saying people don't like it, but not everyone has to be a Tolkien to create a world. Like, I was reading Dunn's books years ago, and he'll get into an action, and then someone casts a spell, and then he goes, "Oh, well, by the way, this reminds me when I was casting spells back in my heyday when I learned what black magic or white magic was." He's like, "Oh, there's a So he just does the action and then pauses the action, gives me a paragraph on magic. Like, oh, that's how magic works. Great. Gets on with it. And off we are to the fight. So that we don't need like this fill in the blanks of how magic works. We need something so that it doesn't slow down the pace, because pacing is a thing.
Well, it's like, when I think about it, it's like with Dragon Age, you have codexes to fill in gaps, to build up the world, to do the world building.
Which is basically the appendices of Tolkien's work, where it explains in great detail how the world works.
Yeah,
but you don't need a massive glossary or a massive, like, you don't have to write about the history of trees.
Well,
to get.
Yeah. What I always think of if you're doing world building, you yourself as the creator should have this massive history for the world that you're creating, so that you can pick stuff and do that. Like you yourself should have it. It doesn't necessarily mean shoving onto the player or the reader or anything like that. Like you say, like what Dunn does.
Yeah. Well,
the audience.
It depends on the writer's style. So if the writer wants to do 10 pages of dialogue, eventually he has to stop and describe what the hell is going on in the third person, or else it's just a scene of 2 or 3 people talking. And you're like, who is this wizard? What? Magic? What? Like, you have to actually slow stuff down and fill in the blanks. I get that. But this is like, Tolkien's not the be-all, end-all of world building. And
I get that, yeah.
And to translate that to video game or like Dragon Age is like, that's not even this. Like, they're not even close.
No, I was just giving an example of someone who had vast quantities of world building, like the entire history of almost like of Orbital Earth. So when you read the stories, you think, actually, no, I'm actually quite vested in this world. I'd like to see it not succumb to darkness. Because nothing takes me out of a story and thinking, well, this world doesn't work. How, why should I care if this happens?
Well, the focus of the narrative should always be, who's the main character? What are they trying to do? What's their plot? And why should I care about that? So you have to attract the audience to that thrust. Once you have that hook, once they're along for the ride, slow the ride down, give them some pretty pictures to look at while they're looking to their left and to the right. And go, oh, who's that over there? Oh, that's the inn, and this is the inn where people go, and the people are heroes, and they used to come from 200 years ago, and blah. It's like, that's fine. But if that's not part of the thrust of the story, why are you wasting my time? So, the video game world describes things visually, so you don't have to go through all that jazz. And then you have, with Tolkien, the music, the language, the poetry, the songs, the Ents who have stories to share. You have Tom Bombadil, all these other big names that just pop up, and like Gandalf is going to fill you in on the details while they're on their journey. Not to sit back and read a history lesson. So, what he's saying isn't technically wrong, but you're kind of like, what's the problem exactly? That you're not understanding that Dragon Age 2 missed, and Inquisition missed, and Veilguard missed. Like, what do you mean? You're not explaining that. Yeah.
My only thing that I'll add on to that is, if you are a creator, if you make a good living, breathing world, then the rest is easy, because the story will just flow into that world.
Well, the writer will not waste their time. Yeah, they don't have to worry about where they are or where they're going, because they already they have the plot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like once you get like your places, your names, all this sort of stuff, you can go, well, I can do a story now. So
yeah, it's
world building from a creative position is it's not the be all and end all, but it makes your life a little bit easier.
it reminds
because
me,
you're not. You go on.
It reminds me of trying to get the car in Fallout 2, because you don't need the car, but you can get the fuel cell, you can buy the car, you can finally get into it, and then you finally get a car. Now you can travel. Now you can go where you need to go, and that's what most stories are like, because you have to set up. You have to build a car. You have to build a vehicle, which is the story, kind of. Sometimes it's a literal magical vehicle, or a ticket, or a train, or whatever. And we're finally on the journey. We could finally begin, after we got rid of all the housekeeping bullshit. To, like, we got the gas, we got the vehicle, we got the driver, we got the food and everything. Okay, fine, let's go. It takes like a good 3 chapters in fantasy just to set stuff up. I understand that. But once we're there, you better get a damn good destination and reason, or I don't give a shit. I do not care. That's why in Inquisition we always say Haven works because one, we know of Haven. We were there before from a previous game.
Yep.
We know what was going on. Obviously, it looks better and it's more robust and it's detailed. And we could walk around. And every time I'm in Haven, I go through every house. I go through every interactive object I can. And then like a week later, it gets blown up. And that should piss you off. And that's what's good about Inquisition. It gives you something and it takes it away. And unfortunately, it then upgrades you to king status with a brand spanking new freaking castle in the sky. Yeah, it's just the stupidest bullshit. And I'm just like, that is the dumbest shit of all the things they got right. And it just went rags to riches.
But also in
Emperor.
In the Skyhold, as it's called, because they weren't trying to get onto the Skyrim bandwagon. There's nothing to do in there. It's like if you go up to your quarters, it's like there's nothing to interact with. It's just scenery. You're like, okay, so there's no point being here.
Yeah, you're dilly-dallying around a maze of where is everyone? Where are my friends?
Yep. But there's very little to even do. It's like, I'll talk to a few people. But after a bit, because Bioware was lazy again, you don't get conversation choices. You just get the stock phrase.
And I compare that to
cool.
I compare that to the Suikoden series where you literally get a castle, and every time you get it's a different thing because you get like 108 characters to recruit, and every time you recruit a new character, they either set up shop in your castle. That becomes a function like a I don't know, an armor, or sometimes they're just there to window dress, like they'll do the washing, or they'll be a hunter. But there's mini games as well. There's stuff to do, and there's things to collect. There's all kinds of urns and pots and scrolls and books, and there's a whole stupid antique thing you could go into the baths, I guess, the bathing parts. You could set up these urns. They could do some Halloween bullshit. So there's all this fun stuff in the style of building up an army to fight the big bad, which is what Inquisition was about. And I look at these two games, I'm like, this game came out on the PSX. Suikoden 1 was on launch year. And it had way more content than this was it 7 years? How long did it take Inquisition? 6 or 7 years? I can't remember the time frame. 5 years? I don't know.
2011. Inquisition came out in 2014.
14? Okay. So 3 years. Oh, yeah. It's just like, oh, I got a castle. And it's like, no, you can side with the mages or you could side with the Templar. Like, oh, that sounds familiar. I did that in the second game. Didn't change a thing.
If I have a first game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you do as well.
So you do it in every game.
It doesn't change anything. Yeah. Anyway.
Process. It's mostly good as a point of reference for you, the writer. You are going to write that story, aren't you? You are writing it, right?
No.
That's not just a weird hypothetical that you came up with and then did nothing with, I assume, because that would mean, as a writer, you're really operating on the level of that one friend that we've all had who asks you weird hypotheticals. Dude, would you rather be a cat, but you're so fat you can barely walk? Or would you rather be a dog, but you're like one of those annoying little dogs that old women carry in their purses?
What?
I don't know, man. This feels like a dumb conversation.
They're called chihuahuas.
But I value our friendship, so I guess the cat? Probably I'd be the fat.
What the What did we stumble upon here?
That cat. My point is, if you're following me,
No.
that for a fantastical writer, world building is a useful exercise, but it's also not the only or even the chief thing of which stories are made. In my example moments ago, I asked you to imagine a group of people. Who are those adventurers? What are their names, their appearances, their personalities? What are they adventuring for?
Who cares?
Their ambitions, their goals, their aspirations.
There, now you're getting somewhere.
I asked you to place them in a setting. Where is that haunting castle specifically? How far away from the town is it? When is this story?
Okay, now you're just randomly asking questions. This is not helping. You're wasting the audience's time. This is not world building. You're turning into a female and you're just going, what is that? How does that work? Who's this person? Who are they related to? What do they want? It's like, no. Where's the plot? Why are they there? Why did you create them? What's their motivation for being there? That's what you answer first, and everything stems from that. Then people care. If you do not give me that, I don't care how far away they are from the inn, or who their friends are, or how pretty they are. It doesn't matter to me.
Are these characters trekking through the fall leaves, the summer, the winter snow, or the spring flowers? And who lives in that?
These are all descriptions. That is world building. You just said it doesn't matter. It's like, why are you doing it?
Or else, why is it there?
This is actually more exhausting than the time I read Lord of the Rings and fell asleep
Oh,
four times trying to read the same page.
I gave up on the third book. I was like 9. I was like, I can't do this. I tried twice. I'm like, not for me. I remember that too. It was about a third, not even a third done. I was just like, this is too much. Second book was good though.
Knowing these facts, or discovering or creating if you prefer, can be world building, but drawing your reader in to make them care and walk them through the whole ordeal, that is telling them the story.
Sure.
That is why I say sometimes we experience world building as stories about stories, or why I call it the who, what, where, when, why process.
Yeah, this is just childish. I'm sorry. This guy's not teaching me anything, and his understanding of this is so pedestrian. I'm like, no, that the who, what, where, when, why process, like that could be anything. You're just describing characters.
Isn't that like a song from Spy Kids as well?
Oh, yeah.
Who, what, where, when, and why did you? There are people who will get that reference, and I'm not just an old man remembering a movie from the early 2000s.
Well, we're almost halfway done.
Sorry, it's been years since I've seen Spy Kids, so yeah, all I remember are the Slizzards.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, he does get very very pretentious with this
Snake.
video.
We know what he's saying. He's just such a. It's so. I don't know what to call it. It's like a child trying to describe Tolkien, and you're like, not really.
Yeah.
The phrase world building is also, I have to admit, a bit up its own ass. Like a lot of the ways that writers or non-writers talk about.
What does that even mean? The phrase.
No. You should not call something up its own ass. No. Don't. Just don't. No.
Writing. It kind of wants to be grandiose or provocative. I wouldn't say sitting down at a computer with yet another cup of homebrewed coffee that I've allowed to turn cold and hammering away at my mechanical keyboard with fingers a little too cold to be comfortable and a little too in my flow now to want to get up and go get a pair of gloves or a sweater ever makes me feel grandiose or provocative.
I don't know why you even told us that.
At least not beyond an occasional, oh, that's a good turn of phrase, I'll use that, which I allow myself to briefly entertain before getting back to work. But listening to some cool music while imagining characters...
I don't care. Let's go a bit further ahead.
Set it in Vienna. If it's something else, work out what the something else is and put it front and center. If your world is no more complicated than these are the enemy, this is why you care, then you don't need to invent centuries of detailed history. If the world is more complicated, then great. You sure as hell need to focus on the reasons why the player should negotiate the complexities.
The players? Are we talking about game players? Are we talking about the players in a show? Like what?
I think it's talking about game players.
Okay, because I
have watched this video before. I just can't remember half the stuff I spoke.
Like, is he giving game design cue or writing ideas for games? Like, I don't think he's the right guy to give suggestions for that.
Well,
it's easy to.
It's made me think. Hold on. I'm actually creating. I wouldn't call it a story. It's like a like those war documentaries you see, but it's like based in like a fantasy world.
Right.
So I've got to get the idea of histories and peoples and everything like that, the world building into it. So when he's talking about, you don't really need to know this and do that, I'm like, it's a little bit more complicated.
Well, anyone who has an idea for writing a premise, you sort of jump between the character you want to be the protagonist and the setting and why he is the way he is and why he's special. And most writers, and this is where we get the fan fiction, say, oh, well, he's really smart, or he was born with some gift to do math there, or some supernatural power. And then you go through this and you're thinking, this is stupid. This is childish. And then you get out of that phase and you whittle them down like you would any idea into the most believable. Oh, this story has to be told because this character must exist exactly the way he is, as I've watered him down as much as possible, so that he's the only guy who could play this role. That's when you know, okay, now I got to tell his story. Not because he was born with the cross between an angel and a demon and he's a hybrid and he could join the two realms together because he understands. It's like, no, you stop that.
Well, my idea comes from, you know what, that book, World War Z, not the movie, the actual book.
All right.
What was that?
Was that? Oh yeah, sorry, I do apologise. So I read it and I enjoyed the premise of. It was such an original premise of like looking through a zombie apocalypse, but not like a normal zombie movie like plot. It was like news reports and almost like a documentary, like a history documentary. And I thought, that'd be interesting for fantasy. And I'm just wondering how his lessons here would help me write that, and I just can't see it. Apart from probably remembering to turn my heating up.
All right. Well, we skipped ahead to 15 minutes and a half.
Timeline. It's hard to make a timeline interesting. We're stuck with world building as a term. It's bedded in, and one grumpy column by one mid-ranking games writer isn't going to start a revolution. But next time you hear it, remember that the quality of a story setting is measured not on its expansiveness, but its distinctiveness. Tolkien, as usual, has the best words. Parenthetically, and don't you...
No, he has the most words. I wouldn't say they're the best. That's a weird thing.
So
They're big stories. I don't think, big stories are emphatically the best. That's not... it's like saying you want to build a wall. Tolkien built the biggest wall, but he used really, really tiny bricks. And he kept going with them. It was like, okay, dude, if you use bigger bricks in a smaller wall, you might have gotten the same approach depending on your process. That was his style. Just keep going and going and going and going. Other authors don't want to build gigantic walls, and they'll use tiny bricks like crazy, but they know how far those bricks will take them. And I give the analogy of building a wall, because that's what writing is. You're just putting words on top of words, what came before, and whether you're using too much mortar or too much brick, or the brick is too big or the brick is too small, or etc. So do you need all that filler? No, you really don't. You need to get to the point. And if you have a good solid foundation, you don't need too many bricks. You need action, you need conflict, and you need a reason why the audience cares. And there's many reasons for that. It could be love, it could be lust, it could be a plot. There's all kinds of plots. Why you're paying attention, desire for change, good conflict between the villain that's really important to you. So hopefully a mystery that'd be nice. I'm curious what's going to happen next or who did what. Gives you an extra level of sophistication that the audience is curious. It's a baited hook. You're ready to get going with that mystery, and how you tell it is more important than the actual story, I've found. So all this jazz about how big the filler should be, I'm like, dude, just get to the freaking value of what you're trying to tell us.
That whole that whole statement on the foundation, by the way, that's all world building really is. It's making a foundation for the story. And if your world building is good enough, you can basically have additional stories. You can expand on the original story easily enough.
Yeah, the setting
You
is.
don't have to be a master writer to be able to expand on a really good story.
Yeah,
But if you want it to be of the same or a similar quality, then you do have to be a good. You do have to be a good writer for that part.
Well, yeah, world building can be characterization. It doesn't have to be. Some people consider it establishing the setting and events before and after the occurrence of the setting. So yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, you need to know some, especially in fantasy. But once you get the world, the planet, the timeline, the time of day, how people talk, the language, is like, all right, we got the basics. People consume oxygen. There's a star in the sky. The planet rotates around. It's like, okay, we get it. We're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and on the whole, it's difficult to make a timeline interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Time. Just about every single timeline I've seen has been filled with events that. Oh, wait, what happened here? That would be interesting to see or read about.
It's like reading 60s or 70s sci-fi, like Le Guin, and why I recommend people checking out her book, The Left Hand of Darkness, because it's basically like every other science fiction that was sort of like, okay, how do we deal with space travel? What's the point of going to another planet? What would that planet look like? Why do we want to talk to aliens? It's all the basic stuff. She has these little touches that are like, oh, there's a creative moment, and that's it. Like there's the world building is just, oh, this conflict causes this. How does that happen? And then you explain it. Oh, these people don't have the same custom as those people. We got to run away. Okay, let's run away. And the story is very simple. So obviously that's not a long story, but it's more of not a short story either. It's probably less than a novella. It's in between. So it's an easy read is what I'm saying. Is you'll get, once you get that vibe for what works, as small as those bricks are, then you go, oh, this is all I need. I can make the bricks bigger. I can make the mortar bigger. I can fill in all the gaps to make you feel like you know what's going on, but you don't need to go any further.
To go into obviously a Dragon Age example, I was just I sometimes go onto Dragon Age Wiki just when I'm bored and scrolling, and I came across some extra stuff about because obviously you have like the blights and everything, and I was reading through like the timeline of it, and it came to like the fourth blight, and I noticed something that I'd never read before about because obviously like Hawk's a champion of Kirkwall, but there was a champion of Starkhaven, and who was involved in like all the fourth blight and everything, and it's like, oh wow, I'd actually like to know more about this person, and that's just from a little timeline thing. Just this name kept popping up at different events, and I was like, if you didn't do a timeline, you'd never know about this character. I'd like to, it made me interested to like read more. Unfortunately, there's nothing else more. But,
Yeah, there's a lot of lore that or backstory that the writers made for the same purpose as the Codex in Mass Effect. It's like you don't need it, but it's there.
It's an interesting extra, and it was one of the first times I've ever actually read through like a code, for like some extra bit, and been like, I'd like to see or know more about this, because the person's not like a warden. It's not important. It's just he just turns up and becomes a champion, like out of the blue. And next thing you know, he's at like every single important event. So I just like to imagine there's just this random guy, like, hi, don't mind me.
Yeah, this
just
is
here. Carry on. Do what you're doing.
These are the speculations of what was the sequel to Mass Effect going to be. Oh, it's going to be the First Contact War. That'd be interesting because we want to know how we opened the first gate, who did it, how did it start, what were the first Turians like, how did the diplomacy work, all that. That would have been fun. It would have been simple. It would have been, just paint by the numbers. Here we go. Here's the process. Here's the timeline. Fill in the blanks. That would have been totally. I think that would have worked. It would have been very simple to fulfill. Again, all the setting is done. There's no need to innovate. You just use what they give you, and just color the blanks with whatever shades you like. And people would be like, "Oh, what if we invent the M6 instead of the M7 rifle?" It's like, yeah, you could do that. That'd be great. You could do all these.
There's one of the soldiers. There's one of the soldiers under Ashla's dad.
Yeah, really play with the lore. Play with
So you get,
I don't know, the N7
so you get
program.
to see the. So you get to see the surrender, and it turns out the surrender is absolutely necessary because the Turians were about to nuke it or something.
Right. So all these things would have been a simple story to make. A game. It could have been just like Dragon Age 2, which is basically an aside. It's we always joke in the title of Dragon Age should have been Dragon Age Kirkwall Knights or Kirkwall something or other. Same with one of the sequels or one of the asides to Mass Effect would have been you're a CSEC officer on the Citadel. So it was like Citadel Knights or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, it's you're a beat cop. It's like, that's awesome. In a city in the sky, 16 million
Is
people.
that a nod towards, was it Baywatch Nights?
Yeah, I don't remember where it started, but it's just a.
No, it's that. Did you never see that? You know Baywatch.
Yeah, I know. I just never watched it.
That's it. That second one.
Nights.
No, but David Hasselhoff made a spin-off where he solved crimes at night, and then it eventually got to him solving supernatural crimes. So there was werewolves and aliens.
Yeah,
but it was all connected to Baywatch.
So it was basically copying X-Files.
Oh god.
Pretty much, yes.
David Hasselhoff. Oh god. Anyway, we'll go for another minute.
I know how to find it.
This guy is not helping my rating skills.
Sentence really should pile up at the end like a drugged centipede. Quote, "It is the mark of a good fairy story, of the higher or more complete kind, that however wild its events, however fantastic or terrible its adventures, it can give to one child or man that hears it when the turn comes, a catch of the breath, a beat and lifting of the heart, near to, parenthetically or indeed accompanied by, tears, as keen as that given any form by literary art and having a peculiar quality." End quote. Think for a moment about the worlds you've loved in games. Every one of them will have a moment with that quality. It may be scavengers playing acoustic guitar around a fire. It may be the way backstory clicks into place. It might be the emotional undertone of an invented proverb.
This is really random.
It might be the tilt of a ringed planet against the night. But
you're telling me the cosmetic skybox in a science fiction game I'm playing has a ringed planet in view, and because it's like that, that is what that makes me play the game better, more what? Because there's detail, because there's an ornamentation on that thing. No, dude, come on.
Won't timeline. End quote. Well said, Alexis. I in particular love the nod to J.R.R. Tolkien's on fairy stories. Which for the uninitiated...
So he was quoting... Let me just...
acoustic guitar around a fire. It may be the way backstory clicks into place. It might be the emotional undertone of an invented...
Kennedy 138?
It might be the tilt.
Who is that? What is that? Is that one of his people give him money? What is this?
I don't know.
But
he's quoting somebody. Somebody called Alexis. Apparently.
All he's doing is saying there's nuance, there's detail over there and over here, and it's like, yes, that doesn't mean it's a good story. That just means you filled in some detail for some reason.
Also, I'm sorry about that. The torture we've just been through. It's. Yeah, he's repeating it.
Right.
Of a ringed planet against the night.
That's
There
when I
won't
sleep.
be a timeline. End quote. Well said, Alexis. I in particular love the nod to J.R.R. Tolkien's On Fairy Stories, which for the uninitiated is a lovely essay about fantasy literature, the writing process and all which compels us throughout our experience with such things. These words, I think, ring true even in this context. Kennedy's sentiment does not appear to me to mean do not world build, but instead he seems to be saying approach storytelling with intentionality. These are theoretically compatible views that nevertheless yield very different mindsets.
I don't know what he just said there. Intentionality yield what? No, dude. Don't waste my time. That's it.
He's talking about something someone else said, but
I don't know.
I have no idea who it is, and I only caught
Yeah.
I didn't even catch half of it.
If he's
so it's a bit
trying
confusing
to explain ornamentation on a cake, I'm like, that's nice. That's after the cake is already perfect, after the toppings and the fillings and the base, everything's perfect. Yes, you could do something fancy, like the rings of a planet on the skybox. Yeah, there's a story to be told about that asteroid belt. I get it, but it has nothing to do with the actual world you're standing on.
As Enigma has put in the comments, there's a severe lack of Dragon Age in this video about Dragon Age. He's not explained how Dragon Age's world building is so good, but it's struggling, and we're 17 minutes in.
You need clearly a planet in orbit with a ring around it, so you could look at the sky and go, wow, what is that?
That truly is the Dragon Age.
The Dragon Age world building is over there. That's what Origins should have had. Oh.
Like your highlighted distinction between the acts of world building and storytelling.
Yeah.
What Kennedy is pointing towards is closer to that which compels us, that which animates us, that which inspires us about games.
Planets.
This is why I have referred to world building as vanishing into the writing process, only to be reproduced in terms.
What the?
Oh. I forgot how pretentious this guy was.
How does world building translate to vanishing into the? What is? You know what? We're gonna stop. This is pointless. If I were to teach a class, I'd be like, just get these pretentious pricks out. Like, this is so stupid. You're not gonna just write a damn story. Get someone who likes reading to read your story and say whether it's good or bad and explain why. That's it. Start from there.
Here's the first meme.
Oh, God.
We're doing memes.
Let's just get the memes. This is sad. At least he's not like using overt language and so many adjectives and swearing at people he disagrees with. At least that's something. Seems like a nice guy.
He's not trying to be ingenuous. He's just convoluted.
Where? What? May the 15th, 2021. That's a bit old. Are you sure?
I copied and pasted for one Ginga sent me, so
all right. There we go. Okay. June the 20th.
I'm having to scroll down to it myself as well.
Okay, here it is. Oh no. I don't want to be that. Okay, option 1, our team is with you. 2, you're in control here. 3, you're allowed to feel things. 4, I feel like that too.
RPGs used to be about choice.
I don't get it. I don't know what... I will never play Vanguard, so I don't care.
It says at the bottom, RPGs are all about choice.
Oh no. Not even AI Smash or Pass would give Pass a smash. Verdict pass. 1 out of 10. What the F is this? It's a character that is both blighted and ugly and wrong. Why would I stick my dick in that? I'd rather die than F that. Wow. Okay.
No.
Dragon Age of Veilguard endures a brutal game award shutout. I identify as non-award nary. Okay. That was November of last year. Okay. What do we got here?
And this is Ratatouille.
I think so.
So yeah, the food critic. He's eating the food that reminds him of his childhood when he liked food.
Ah, isn't that cute?
So here's the game that reminds him of his childhood when he liked playing video games.
There it is. There's Corypheus. There's Dr. Claw. Or Dr. Claw's Corypheus.
Next time, Grey Warden. Next time.
You know my name. Okay. Heels versus Babyface is triggered. Let's see.
This world, just think of all the planets I can visit, all the
Can
immersive
pronounce.
things that I can get involved with, all the fights, all the relationships, all the out, every fucking conceivable
nice.
opportunity so you can fucking current day us.
Oh no.
Current day Californian shit, because that's all we fucking know, because we're boring. We're so can't see past our own fucking reflection. Fuck you having a good time. Phil, you have nothing to say. And you wonder why people are getting so fucking sick.
Wow.
Onto the Bay Knights one.
Yeah.
Baywatch Nights.
All right, let's see.
First episode. A promising spin-off where sexy PIs battle burglars and madmen. Last episode. A Scooby-Doo disaster about sea monsters and physics. Psychics.
Is that someone wearing a giant hat of or a head of a fox? What is that? Or is that a literal fox? Oh god, or a dog? I don't know.
I think that's supposed to be the sea monster.
Oh god.
Or is it Scooby-Doo?
You know,
That's a great day, isn't
if
it?
you ever watch Magnum PI, you'll probably have a better time than watching this Baywatch Nights thing. All right, we're done.
Depends on what you watch it.
Uh,
Depends on what you watch it for. If you watch Magnum PI, you're probably in it for something serious. But if you watch this, you better be for something camp and stupid.
All right. Well, Locke had to go, or Hawk had to go do stuff in life, and so do we, because my God, I don't know what that video is for, but I hope their patrons got something out of it, because I don't think they, it's one thing to talk to your I don't know, your English teacher, your writing teacher, whatever you're doing at school, for help. And if he gave that, like, he made a video response, or like, what the, like, dude, what? I need help with my short story or my script, not the philosophical concept of world building or whatever he was trying to talk about. Whew. Anyway,
I think people just watch it just to have some background noise.
I don't know.
They don't even pay attention to it while it's on, and they just have it on while they're doing other things. And
Well, yeah, writing is very hands-on. It's very much learning a trade, like you would bricklaying or any other laborsome effort. It's not easy because it's physically and mentally demanding at the same time. And as I said, it comes about through boredom and bouts of epiphany, and you're constantly jumping between the two. It's hard. You should be constantly guessing yourself, and you have to be careful when you're hot, because when you're hot, you're in ego land. You're in the magic world of I'm always right because I am God, and that's when you have to learn to slow down and stop. So, all that stuff about world building, just do what you feel is enough to make you feel comfortable with the world, and when you think that's when it's time to give it to someone else to tell you you're wrong, that you're doing too much or too little. So never go through this philosophical gobbledygook of mud in people's shoes and the poetic nature of a setting. Like, no, just don't waste my time. Anyway, thank you for the suggestions, guys. Keep the suggestions coming, of course, and the voting coming every so often. You might have a video tomorrow. We don't know. The weather's been fantastic. It's been cool this week, but it got warmer just today. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the summer. I know I am. And I think the new season, or a lot of anime has actually finished this week. So I think we're starting up a new season in the world of anime. either next week or next month. So something to look forward to. Good old stories. Anyway, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Good night.